Hey everyone, I'm Karen. Today we will be making donuts. I hope that your family finds this recipe as enjoyable as mine does. Enjoy. To an empty bowl we will add 2 cups and 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. To that I am adding 3 tablespoons of sugar, a half teaspoon of salt, an 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg, and an 1/8 teaspoon of cinnamon to give that warmth to the donut. We're going to mix these ingredients together, making sure that they're well incorporated into one another. And then we'll set these ingredients to the side. Get an empty bowl for our wet ingredients. To this bowl we're going to add a half cup of warm milk, and that's whole milk, a 1/3 stick of melted butter, and 1 egg. And our final ingredient to the wet ingredients will be dry yeast. You can add 1 pack or 2 1/4 teaspoons. Mix all of these ingredients together and then let it sit for 10 minutes so that your yeast can activate. Once the wet ingredients have sat for 10 minutes, you're going to combine those into your dry ingredients. And as you can see, it was kind of frothy where the yeast had sat in the bowl, so I'm just taking that out and mixing it up with everything else. So now what you're going to see is we're combining both the dry and wet ingredients, and you're going to have like a sticky dough. It almost looks flaky at first, but you'll see it come together, and we just have to keep mixing and mixing and mixing until we get the product that we're looking for. Take a little bit of oil, place it on your working station, and then you're going to take the dough and place it on the oil once you've rubbed the oil in on the working station. And at this point, you'll start kneading your dough, and you'll see it come together after about 10 to 15 minutes of kneading. Right now it just looks like a bunch of crumbles. But as we work it, it'll start forming. So we're coming to our final steps, and as you can tell, the mixture of products creating the dough has changed texture, and whenever I press in, you can see that it bounces back. The yeast is definitely active in this dough. So I'm going to oil a bowl, and you'll see that in just a bit. So my dough is ready. We're going to oil the bowl and then place the dough inside. Making sure it's well lubed. We don't want cold air or air drafts to get into the dough while it's sitting. So we're going to cover it with some clear wrap, and we'll cover it for about an hour to an hour and a half. While that's sitting, we're going to make our glaze. To a bowl, I'm adding 2 cups of powdered sugar. Then I have some melted butter, that's 2/3 of a stick. and anywhere from 3 to 5 tablespoons of milk, depending on how thick or thin you would like your glaze to be. So I added 4 tablespoons. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla just for taste, and you can change your flavorings how you desire, but for me, I like vanilla. So I'm just going to mix this up. We want to mix it to make sure that we have no clumps of the powdered sugar. We want a smooth glaze. And so I'm using a whisk to get those clumps out. My consistency is still a tad bit too thick, so I'm going to add another tablespoon of milk, which will bring me to the 5 tablespoons. And then I'm going to mix my glaze again, just to look at the consistency. And tonight, we are not just making glazed donuts, but we're going to make chocolate glazed donuts as well. So I'm going to get ready to divide my original glaze into a bowl with some cacao powder. I'm using about 2 tablespoons of cacao powder. It's what I have on hand to make chocolate glaze. And I'm just going to add about half of my vanilla glaze to that bowl. I'm setting aside the vanilla glaze and mixing the chocolate. Make sure you do this gently. As you can tell, the powder from the cacao it just went everywhere. So be gentle with your stirring. And make sure the cacao powder is well blended with your glaze, just so you have a smooth texture. So our dough has set for about an hour, hour and a half. I actually did an hour and a half with this one, and it's risen, as you can see, about twice the size that it originally was. So I'm getting ready to flour my table, and then I'm going to place my dough on the table, and we're going to start rolling. Because the dough is sticking, I don't want to add too much flour, but enough so it doesn't stick to the rolling pin nor the table. And you do have to apply a bit of pressure whenever you're rolling out, just because the yeast is going to cause it to spring back. And I'm just doing a little bit of stretching and wiping off some of the excess flour, because I don't want excess flour to be on my dough. This dough should make about 12 donuts, so a dozen of donuts. And I have some cutters here. You can use anything that you find about the same size that you desire, but I have biscuit cutters. So I'm just going to cut the big circle. And I'm keeping my circles as close as I can to one another so I can max out the amount that I can cut within this first round. And my dough, I usually like it about a quarter to a half-inch thick. And now I'm cutting out the donut holes, which I'll actually reuse to roll back into the dough to make some more donuts. Beside me, I've set out a piece of wax paper, and I'll place my donuts on top of the wax paper so they can sit, because they'll proof for 30 minutes after you place them on the wax paper so that they can rise a little bit more. Make sure that you have a decent amount of space in between the donuts just to give them that extra room that they need to grow. See, I have 12. And now I'm going to cover them with a cloth. And this is just like a flour sack cloth so that they can rise for 20 to 30 minutes. And now it's time to make our donuts. I have canola oil. It's about 160 degrees. You place your donuts in there gently to keep their circular shape, and just watch them because they will turn brown fast, and you don't want an overdone donut. So just make sure that you flip them when they become a golden brown color. And I'm using chopsticks. It's just easier to flip the donuts with. And you can see that golden brown color. Doesn't usually take even a minute. So I have a wire rack with another piece of wax paper under it, and I'm going to glaze my donuts and then sit them on the wire rack so that the glaze can drip off. And it's an easy cleanup. So now I'm going to glaze the chocolate donut. This is the final product. I did 6 glazed and 6 chocolate. My family found this recipe delicious, and I hope that yours does too. Enjoy!